Okay, fair warning to all. I spilled a lot of code red on this headset last night. So if it sounds like crap, I'm horribly sorry. Okay, let's get started straight away. We're gonna actually do some animating in this. But where I would normally start out doing a reload, which tends to be the centerpiece or the main thing out of an entire set of animations, not because it's the longest, but because it has the most stuff going on at once, and it's the most fun to do. And I normally start out with those so that I can get bored and do the other things, the unimportant things later, and no one will notice that much that I didn't put half as much effort into them. Okay, well, first things first. I'm going to teach you a little bit about Bezier controllers here for animations. And if you're using Max 4, you don't have to do this. But if you're using 6, and I think 5 does it too, the in-between, how exactly how one keyframe gets to another, I believe the default was changed from 4 to 5. From the smooth controller, the smooth interpolation, to I think it's called float. And there's another one in 6, and I've never had a user reference for Max 6, so I really don't know what it's called, but I believe it's called float. But I'm going to tell you how to change that right now, so you can set your defaults up to the way I like them, and I think you'd like them a lot too. Come up over here to Customize. Come on down to Preferences. Click on this little animation button here. Come over here to see this controller defaults. That's what we're after. Hit on Set Defaults. Bezier float right here is what you want to set. Now mine's already set up to the smooth interpolation. This is smooth right here. And I guess while I'm animating, not these shoots, but we'll do this for the reload and possibly a draw if I do a VTM for that. These right here are what controls the in-betweens of your keyframes. Now for example, these are going to approach keyframe to keyframe very smoothly. This one here is linear. It's not going to have any weight, any bias or emphasis on one keyframe to the other. For example, to just go from A to B as straight as possible. 50 miles an hour doesn't go from 45 to 50 to 50 to 45. It just goes 50. This right here is step. It's absolutely worthless. I seriously can't think of a use for it. I mean, there's got to be one. Maybe someone can explain it to me later. It's crap. This is a fast in. It's going to approach the next keyframe very quickly and sort of slow down toward the end. This is a slow in. It's going to or I'm sorry, am I getting these mixed up? Fast in, slow in. One of these, this one approaches faster. I'm not sure if it's called a slow in or a slow out. I would imagine, well, God, I don't know. These right here, this is going to approach the second keyframe slower than this one is. I'm sure the picture gives everything away. The actual title, I'm afraid I am not familiar with. This is custom. Don't mess with this. It's junk. Well, unless you're a god, you feel like typing in numbers to animate, which I don't. You don't either. Well, again, unless you're a god. This right here is the float. This is the default. So if you're coming in here for the first time, you're probably going to see this. Now, I like these. I'll give some examples of why I like them and what they can do over the others while we're going on here. For the shoot, it's not that complicated. It's not rocket scientist. You don't have to be a genius to do it. So you're not going to learn about that until later, I suppose. And once you've set those, make sure you've got them. Hit OK one more time. Hit OK. All right. Now let's begin here. Remember the last VTM? I don't remember if it was the first or the second. I believe I told you to link constrain this magazine, whereas you should link the trigger and the bolt here. Now, let's see, how am I going to put this in English? Because I've got an idiot language in my head just fine. For example, if you wanted to parent bone this to the gun and use a link constraint later, you could do that. It's possible. But this is where planning and preparation comes into play, and it's very important here. If you have this parent bone to this gun and you want to set up a link constraint, you can do it. But it's going to go nuts. And I'm going to show you an example. If you're using my rig here, or this will do for anything, but this is an example here, you'll notice these controllers here for the wrists. If you hit on right click and go down to properties, you can see what its parent bone is. Its parent is God, it's called Sphere Gizmo 3, and that should be this right here. Come on. Show me the money. Well, that's what it is. As you can see here, you can, move this thing around here. It's totally useless, in my opinion. I don't know why I did it. So I'm going to hide that right now because it's going to get in my way later. But obviously, yes, these have a parent bone. Both of these do. And they're both the same exact one. Now, what was I just telling you about things going nuts? Well, let's come on down to the motion tab. Go on down to assign controller. Assign a link constraint. Anything you want. Now, as soon as you do this, it just went insane. Now, I'm sure there's a technical term for this, of why it does this and why it goes insane and mutates and jingles around and does all kinds of crazy crap. There's, I'm sure, a technical reason for it, but you don't care about it. Yes, that's right. This is the only VTM that will tell you to fudge the rules. You don't need to know them. You just need to know how to play by them. So, if you've ever wondered why you can parent bone this, and you can set a link constraint. It's going to give you a lot of problems, so prepare. And things that you know are going to come detached, and you know are going to do weird things, link constrain them. Do not parent bone in link constrain later, because you will screw yourself in the face later. Alright, now we're going to select both of these and delink it from the parent bone. Come over here to the unlink selection, which is right next to the link. It shows a little chain exploding. Click that down, and they're gonna flash. Now that means they've got no parent bone. You can double check if you really want to. If you don't believe me, if I'm just here lying to you, but I was not. Now, this is going to be a stylistic choice here. I'm going to. There are so many ways to set this up, and whichever way you like, experiment with both, because I've done both, and I really don't have a certain leaning. I tend to change, if not for purpose, just for practice and fun. You can, for example, give these hands a link constraint that constrain them to the gun body. Oh, I'm sorry. Add link. Constrain it to the body. Now, if you move the body of the gun, you can tell the hand, it's not going anywhere. It's going to stay on that gun. This is obviously, very useful. Now, there's a few ways this can be used primarily when you're doing animations. You can primarily move the gun. You animate the gun, and the hands are secondary, and they're always parented to this gun. Do you see how that might be useful? Okay, that's one way of doing these things. Another way is to actually link the gun to one of these wrist controllers here. Now, if you move the gun, it moves independently, but obviously if you move the wrist, do you see that? Do you see how these different styles can come into play in all kinds of different things? Alright. Now, the joy of not having parent bones really coming all through here is that you can alternate depending on which animation you want to do. Now, for shoots, I'm gonna switch them up. I'm gonna switch them up here, both of these. How about for shoots? We're going to link the hands to the gun. And maybe for the reload, we're going to link the gun to the hands. Now, obviously, for some examples, one's going to be better for the other. If you want to simulate some weight here, and you want perhaps this gun to sink down in this hand, maybe rotate a little bit, it's going to be a lot harder to do if instead of rotating at the pivot here of the wrist to simulate the weight on the wrist, if you've got the wrist linked to the gun, whose pivot point is, it's right there in the middle. That's pretty far from this wrist here, wouldn't you say? Now, it may be a little difficult to simulate that weight. However, as you can tell here, we've got this hand here, and this bone is right in the middle. So if you're holding onto the gun with two hands, it may not be such a bad idea to link the hands to the gun. You got to think about all this stuff, and it's really not as complicated as I make it sound. And trust me, if I'm doing it, anyone can do it. It's really not that tough. But let's, for these shoots here, I'm going to stop blabbing on here, and we're just going to link these hands to this gun and animate the gun, as opposed to animating the hands. I hope you all caught that. It's pretty important. It's not that hard to understand, thankfully. So, we've got the hands linked to the gun. There we are. It's going to be very useful when you're doing these shoots here. And You know, I just got a thing where I gotta do this in wireframe here when I'm in the left viewport. Well, I don't want to look ugly for you people who aren't used to this, or maybe you are. Alright, let's get started. Max 6, I think you can just go straight to whatever keyframe and it's going to fill in the 0 for you. But I think if you're using 4, if you don't set a 0, you may as well just not be in animation mode because it's going to be moving the actual mesh of the model and not doing animations. So let's just play it safe for those of you who are multi-max lingual. Right click on here to set your keyframe 0 and 0. Groovy. We're going to start out, you know, we've got some things to do in this animation. Why don't I run through it real quick. We're going to pull this finger back here to pull this trigger. We're going to move this bolt back, and we're going to move the gun, obviously. And the gun's the most important, so, you know, why don't we do that now? Okay, shoot animations. There are many ways to do them, and throughout all of animation, I'm going to tell you a very important secret that there are many ways to do animations wrong, but there are no ways to do them absolutely right. You can do a million different styles and things and doodads and whiz-waz and still have a wonderfully good animation. I tend to do shoots one way. It's a way that I'm most comfortable with and that I like to do. I guess, you know, I might run through another way that I know how to do them, but I'm not too fond of. Just to show you how versatile you can be with these things, depending on your setup with link constraints as well as your imagination, which is most important of all in animation. Let's come on down here to this time configuration tool right here, and they call it a tool when I think really it should be more of a death trap. Look at all these numbers here, and you've got a whole button for rescale time. You could seriously really wreck things up in here. This is so confusing to do here, but we're going to play it safe. We want this to be 30 frames long. That's a great number for shoot animations, for anything small like that. The default max frame per second, I believe, plays at 30 for all versions. Pretty sure that's true. So here, I'm always used to coming here to the frame count, hitting 31. That just means there's going to be 30 frames here. Just something I do. You don't have to do it. You can just type in 30 here or whatever. You know, if you mess with these, you're going to start jacking stuff up, and I don't have time to get into all the doodads that you can do with this piece of crap. The most worthless tool ever. They call it a tool. It's a waste of time. Okay. Make sure you've got your frame 0 set. That's very important. Oh, also we should save this as a shoot. You're going to want to keep your reffing the same. And I should also tell you that do not, you know, make more animations that you're going to say, oh, well, I thought I'd have a bolt, so I'm going to detach some more bones here. Do not do that, because you will have put yourself in a bad position to where if you go to compile this thing, you're going to be scratching your head because you're getting errors all over the place because you've got bones that don't need to be there. That's if you're actually compiling a model. I know that many engines you don't have to, but if you're playing by the rules of the Half-Life engine here, you've got a lot of rules to obey, and you better obey them right. Alright, let's get going here. Now think about this. I tend to always start out here with a, you know, it's so weird for me to be explaining the sciences of animation, of shooting a weapon, of all things. Why don't we come in here down the motion tab one more time? I'm going to show you the in-betweens here. Now you can't, you see this here right here? Normally, if you are using, perhaps, I'm going to show you just a quick example here. We're going to set a frame 0 for this arm. Okay, did you see that? Ignore everything else except for the hand here. You see these here? These are your controllers. Well, hey, Nick, hey, I can't believe you were right on that one. You see how this is set to smooth now as your default? If it weren't, you'd be pulling out these out the yin-yang, and you don't want that. Tony Danza doesn't want that. Nobody wants that. I suppose I should have moved some arms here first, just to give you an idea of some other things you can do with these, instead of jumping right in, but I don't care. You know, how about, this is what I tend to do here. I tend to go down to 12. It's always nice to, and you know, I could, it's just so difficult for me to start explaining the science of recoil, not just the gun recoil, rest, you know, all these terms here. They're so hard to convey to someone, and I don't want to get it to the point where I'm just doing and you're just watching, because that's not helpful to you at all. Remember, the last frame's always got to equal to first. Okay. Okay, this is a very basic one here.